everybody. I'm coming to you in a very raw form right now, but I'm feeling finally called to share some knowledge with all of you. I have been trying not to live the story of sickness since I was about 3 years old. And it's a hard story to break. But it's also one that we all need to talk about with each other, especially those who are dealing with it very physically and mentally. When I was a kid, I remember the first time I ever felt depressed was when I was between 3 and 5 years old. It's a very obscure feeling for a 3 to 5 year old person, toddler, mini human to be feeling. And it's something that is really hard to pinpoint when you're growing up, when you're not quite sure why you're so sad and why you feel so many things. But it's been the best gift I could have ever been given, is my ability to feel. So mentally speaking, for those who are out there who struggle with depression, who struggle with psychological disorders, just know that you're not alone. And it's really hard to deal with physical ailments on top of mental and emotional. So for somebody like me, and for a lot of people out there who I'm dedicating this to, who deal with chronic illness and disease, it all comes hand in hand, unfortunately. You're probably going to feel a lot of depression at times, but what I can say is that there are ways to work with it, and there are ways to handle it and to love it from the inside out, and to understand that feeling really crappy and physically incapable sometimes of moving and hitting that rock bottom, whether it's coming from a place of grief or from physical distress, sometimes you need that in order to move forward. And so I'm here right now to share with you that it is not an easy path. As somebody who has Lyme disease and allergies to dairy and allergies to fucking so many things, excuse my French, and who's also been diagnosed with having Epstein-Barr virus, which is honestly, it's not rare. It's probably in about 85% of adults. And people live their whole lives without realizing it, but it's really interesting because Epstein-Barr is what causes mono, and I guess I'm here to share my story a little bit because I want people to understand the different approaches towards health that they can take. I spent a lot of time as a child feeling really physically crappy and not understanding why I felt so bad all the time. And it causes a lot of emotional trauma as an adult, as a young adult. It's trauma that requires a lot of psychological work, while I'm also dealing with the physical healing process of Lyme disease and learning how to live in and amongst Epstein-Barr virus and Lyme, which the problem with Lyme disease is that it affects people so vastly different. For people out there who have Lyme, who are just starting to understand themselves and are feeling hopeless, this video is dedicated to you, because I've been doing a lot of research around what can be done to move you forward in a way that is helpful and isn't going to keep you trampled down by Western medicine. And for those of you who are in Western medicine who see this, there is a time and a place for it, and I respect that. For example, if you are if you're chemically imbalanced and you truly feel that you need some sort of chemical to rebalance out your mental state, some people do truly need that. And I think that one of the biggest issues with our world right now is that there's such a wide gap, and I truly believe that what we need to focus on is bridging that gap between the Western and the Eastern philosophies of healing. It's funny, like, a lot of the hippy-dippy healer folks like me are very anti-Western medicine, but that being said, it's not one or the other. It's how to understand using both to the best extents that they can offer in that moment, and it's different for everybody. It's not fair to judge someone for following a Western pattern if that's what they need. For those who are a little less informed, Western medicine is more of the semi-controversial, big pharma, kind of American, European style, and nowadays some other parts of the world as well, but basically Western medicine is very science-based. There's a lot of beauty to the fact that they've done a lot of scientific research and have a lot of physical backed up evidence as to why certain treatments work. So that is the positive side of it. The not so positive side of it is that for people like me who have struggled with yeast problems and lethargy and brain fog and digestive issues, when somebody tells me, even a naturopath who is supposed to be kind of pinned up against a more Western doctor, like a normal doctor at the doctor's office that most people go to, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is it really depends on the person. For me, I was told by I've gone to a lot of doctors. I've been in and out of emergency rooms for years now. I'll never forget calling my mom my freshman or sophomore year of college, and I was in the emergency room for the first of 3 or 4 times in the following 2 years with the worst stomach pain I have ever had. The thing about Lyme disease is that it comes with a lot of co-infections, which is something that they don't talk about a lot. The other thing about Lyme disease is that Western medicine is beginning to pay homage to Eastern approaches towards Lyme disease, because what's kind of coming to the surface is that there's a lot of things that Western medicine has not conquered in regards to Lyme. Lyme is from what I can recall, there's a really good book by Stephen Booner, Buhner, Stephen Booner, called Treating Lyme, or Living with Lyme. I think it's Treating Lyme, and I own that book, and I've been doing a lot of reading up on different approaches. He is really amazing because he takes all of the evidence. He brings stuff from Western scientific study, he brings it all into one book, and then he has a very, very intense herbal protocol that some people swear by. For me, it felt like a lot. It's a lot. However, it's a great place to start. I highly recommend buying that book. I will actually just show you guys a picture of this so that you know what it looks like. So it's called Healing Lyme, and this is the book. It's backwards, but so basically, for me, I started there, and I started spending a lot of time researching before I decided to get treatment. And that's my personality type. I need to research and analyze and figure out what the best approach is for me before I start things. And that usually works for me. Sometimes you do just kind of need to trust your elders or your healers to go with what they tell you. But what I am going to say about that is that nobody knows your body better than you do. Nobody. It is your body, and you own that body. And because of that, people forget sometimes when they go to the doctor or when they have authority figures that have researched and done all the studying, that at the end of the day, it's your choice what your healing process is. And sometimes it's easy to forget that. And so you find yourself in the hands of professionals, and you have everybody telling you to take doxycycline, which is what happened for me in this February of 2020. And there's that little, doxycycline is a antibiotic, and there's that little voice inside your head that's like, don't do that, don't do that. You know that's not going to be good. My history with antibiotics is not good. I have struggled with, and I know this is a bit private, but this is for the use of people to feel like they can heal through this video. I have struggled with extreme responses to antibiotics via yeast infections, via diarrhea, terrible stomach pains. When I was a kid, when I was a baby, apparently, I got really, really sick and was put on antibiotics as a child. And a few times throughout my childhood, I was diagnosed with a really bad case of strep throat, one that came back 2 weeks later. I lost about 20 pounds in high school. I was gone out of school for 2.5 to 3 weeks, completely bedridden, couldn't eat anything, and was really grappling with strep. Strep was and is a co-infection of both mono and Lyme disease. I would get huge swollen lymph nodes here. I would get white patches on the inside of my back of my throat. And it has lasted for a really, really, really long time in my life. My whole life I've been in and out of, as soon as I get the white patches in the back of my throat and the swollen glands, something's wrong. So I dealt with strep throat in high school, middle school. I dealt with yeast problems. Didn't know I had a dairy allergy. Fast forward a bit through high school, experienced the loss of my best friend, who I loved so, so deeply. And to this day, I grieve pretty heavily. And that, in conjunction with dealing with physical health, was a lot for me to bear. So I get to college, I start having parasitic experiences. I got giardia, I got salmonella, I got it all. At times it messes with your head when you start to feel like you're a walking disease. And I started to feel that way. I started to feel like I was just ridden with sickness all the time. And like I couldn't get better. And it was painful. It was really freaking painful. So I went through college. I traveled. I went to Guatemala. I drank some river water by accident while whitewater rafting, and it was awesome, badass experience. And I came home and I was in the emergency room again. And only 2 or 3 years prior, I was also in the, well, not in the ER, but almost went to the ER with salmonella, which I had for 7 days. So, as you can see, there's a pattern. The crazy thing about Lyme disease and Epstein-Barr virus is that they are, they're different. So I can't generalize both of them in one sentence, except for the fact that they both can create very similar chronic symptoms. So having both of them in your system, you have a virus, and then you have this little spiral sheet, which is like Lyme disease. So the virus is Epstein-Barr, and then you have this little freaking spiral bacteria that's crawling around, and it sounds terrifying. And when I first got diagnosed with Lyme in February of 2020, I was traveling to Costa Rica that day. I had no medicine. I had one amazing, and I will show you guys this. I had this one supplement called loracidin, which is a natural, let's see if I can, it's backwards, but it's called monolaurin supplement. It is a lipid that is derived from the oils of coconut. And I went to Costa Rica in February of 2020 with that and a bunch of vitamins and no herbs that I knew could help with what I was dealing with. Excuse me, to be in Central America for 2 months and just try to heal. I had just gone through a breakup. The emotional stress went down. That's number one. Remove emotional stresses from your life if you can, and do it in a way that's helpful for you. Obviously, I'm not saying go break up with your partner if that's not where you're at, but focus on you. Focus on what you need. You are at the center of you are at the center of your universe. Especially when you are trying to heal disease. And that's something I have to constantly remind myself of, because I'm going through heartbreak again right now, and it's really easy to forget that you are the most important person in your life, no matter what. So, I went to Costa Rica. I did not have this book, Healing Lyme. I had the knowledge of 1 or 2 naturopathic professionals. I had now been diagnosed in college days with dairy allergy. So, to give you an idea of my current diet in February of 2020, I am a very holistic person. So, I have gone in and out of taking sugar out of my diet. I'm proud to say I'm probably about 2 months sugar-free, which is huge for me. Huge. That's like one of my biggest addictions in my life is sugar. And it was a freaking battle. So anyways, at the time in February, I go to Costa Rica. What I was aware of was that I had a dairy allergy. Most people who deal with Lyme should not be eating dairy. I might go as far as to just say anybody who has Lyme should not be eating dairy. I will tell you in a minute, I've started to take on Chinese philosophies around healing, and in general, Chinese philosophies on life are just like, to me, one of the most beautiful things, because they've really spent their time for centuries now focusing on the gap that I was talking about, bridging that gap and understanding the technology that we have. Right now they have a traditional Chinese medicine approach, which is literally taking, and what I'm doing is more ancient, but traditional is actually like traditional and modern, is taking traditional approaches of Chinese medicine, which is being in line with the elements, being in line with hot and cold diseases, understanding symptoms of heat versus symptoms of cold in your body. And what I mean by that, for example, is in the approach of Chinese medicine, Lyme disease is considered a hot, damp disease. What I mean by that is heat, meaning there's often symptoms of swelling, inflammation, fevers. You can be prone to things like strep. You can be prone to swollen lymph nodes. Arthritis is a symptom of heat. Any feeling of excessive heat in the body, digestive issues in your stomach. And then dampening is that yeast. Dampening is the sticky, that like damp, weighed down, gooey feeling in your body. So that's the brain fog, the yeast, the lethargy, the inability sometimes to get out the door or even step foot out of your bed, the depression. Those are all symptoms of dampness. So, dairy is a dampening food. Even dairy-free yogurt is a dampening food. Avocados are dampening foods. Sweet potatoes are dampening foods. Those are the main ones. Sugar is both dampening and heating. Regarding heat, garlic, ginger, onion, scallion, all of the allium family, any hot spices, unfortunately, are all heat-producing foods. When people hear that, they say, well, but ginger, garlic, onions, those are used in Chinese approach towards medicine. Yes, they are used for colds. So when you have a cold in the winter, or you're having stagnation in your digestive tract, ginger, garlic, those help to reproduce warmth, heat, if you're really cold. The issue with our society is that we are far more heated than we are chilled. Many more of us deal with hot symptoms than we realize. So when we all have stomach aches, we always go to the ginger tea. Ginger can sometimes actually make that worse. You might consider having ginger tea and trying to figure out, is it helping me, which it could be, or is it causing more gas pains, more burning and heartburn? Sometimes it'll do that, and that means that you have excessive heat in your body. So I got to Costa Rica, and I just felt so happy to be there, and also so extremely terrified. I was working at a festival for 7 days with healing resources around me and people whom I loved and respected, and it was the perfect place to be. But I was also around tropical fruit, which is all heating. I was around alcohol, which is heating. I was around drugs. I was around all sorts of things that can be fun and can be delicious and can be exotic in a beautiful Latin American country. And for all of that, I have love, except tropical fruits are so heat producing. And I just continued to feel crappy. So I was off of dairy. I was in and out of trying to maintain low sugar, but when you're at a festival in Costa Rica, you go for the mangoes and the papayas for breakfast, or the avocados. That's the easy way to feel fed before you have to go work, which was what I was doing. I was working with a holistic group of contemporary witches who were serving herbal elixirs and concoctions, and it was right up my alley. But you're working long hours in the heat. It's sticky. It's dampening. The thing about damp and heat is that it's also a physical thing, the climate. So people who have Lyme disease, if they're going to thrive in a damp, hot climate, which is what I was trying to do, you have to really work hard to keep your internal system at check, because your external system, all the ecology around you, is doing its work to resist what you are trying to heal, which is something I also was not paying enough attention to. My body does better in northern climates with a little bit of humidity to keep my arthritis from flaring up too much, because the cold makes my arthritis really bad. But the super, super damp stuff, I thrive there, but I have to keep my diet really strict if I'm living in places like that. So I was in and out of Costa Rica actually for 5 years and was dealing with female issues, to say it the nicest way possible. In this February, I was there for about, I guess not 2 months, it was about a month during this trip. I got back to Vermont. I went to another naturopath who tried to follow up with me, and he said, in kind of a very blunt way, no, we're just going to have to put you on doxycycline. Doxycycline is the antibiotic that I had mentioned, and I did not want to go on doxycycline. So I spent about 3 weeks with a pill bottle that I couldn't bring myself to touch, because at the time I had cramping, I had diarrhea, I had constipation, I had fatigue, I had depression, everything. I was having symptoms of candida, which is the yeast, all over again, which I thought had disappeared. And so yet again, I found myself kind of resisting this Western technique. And I want to share with you guys what I've learned, as I know I have already, but Chinese medicine is the most beautiful thing that I think I have discovered. European herbalism, amazing too. There are so many. Ayurveda is amazing. That's kind of an Indian form of Chinese approach. They deal with the elements, they deal with different, what they call doshas. So you can kind of pick your approach, but I highly recommend going with an Eastern approach, whether it's Ayurveda or whether it's traditional Chinese medicine. I got a phone call from my sister, whom I love, and she was in herbalism school, which I think is amazing because she was always the more scientific, type A, amazing. I was an amazing student too, but she was really like on her A game, cared deeply for her grades to the extent where sometimes it affected her mental state pretty bad. And these are all things that I'm sure she's very aware of. But it was really beautiful because I had this whole concept of Western versus Eastern and how it's always one against the other and there's no friendship between them. And to watch my sister go from a very kind of traditional scientific approach towards life, and she kind of slowly morphed into going to school for nutrition, graduating and not feeling fulfilled yet, and then really going to her roots. Her and I grew up in Vermont, so we grew up making witch's brews in tree trunks and had a beautiful, beautiful childhood that I am so grateful for in the woods. And I think she began to resonate with that. So she went out to school for herbalism. She went back to school. She went out to Denver. She went back to school for herbalism. She called me up one day when I got back from Costa Rica this year, and she was like, Cass, I have something really awesome to tell you, and I need you to hear me because I think this might be the missing link for you. And I'm so passionate about it because I feel so sorry for people who don't allow themselves the access to all of the elements of healing that we have in this world. And for so long I felt hopeless. Truly hopeless. I found myself having thoughts of, this can be triggering for some people, but I found myself having thoughts of death often. In college, I reached a point of suicidal thought that I othered myself from. In many ways, I was like, no, that's not me. That's what my other friends deal with. I've lost a lot of people to suicide, and so there's a lot of emotion in this for me because it's been a long journey of feeling very separate from my healing path while trying so hard to be in it and putting all of my effort into it. And it paid off. I got a phone call and my sister was like, there's this amazing guy. He did a Zoom session with us, a lecture, and he's a few streets away from you. She's all the way out in Denver. And it felt like a miracle. To be honest, it felt like the best miracle I could have asked for. Like, I could not find the missing link. And it's expensive. The problem with our healthcare system is they do not want certain types of medicine to take over, and they will do everything in their power not to address natural healing the way it needs to be addressed. Right now, I'm doing acupuncture. The general theme of acupuncture is that it addresses different parts in your body with tiny little hair-like needles. They're so tiny. And sometimes it hurts a little bit. They just do like a little tap and then it's in. It's so small. It's not like getting a shot even. It's more like a discomfort because what they're doing is connecting the dots. So they find points that are associated with different issues that you're dealing with. So for me, it had reached my bladder, which in February and March, I hadn't quite gotten there yet. I finally reached a point in about May, June, July where I thought I had a chronic UTI. Finally, I got tested, didn't have a UTI, had to go pee every 5 seconds. I went to my acupuncturist. His name is Brendan Kelly. I think legally it's fine for me to advertise. I don't think there's a problem with that. I highly encourage anybody to go see him. He would love that. You can look him up. I think he has some videos. He's at Jade Mountain Wellness on Kilburn Street, and he has, I think, saved my life. I truly think that. So, acupuncture. Acupuncture connects the dots, and what it does is, I was at a point where I had hit my bladder. Lyme disease can affect all the systems in your body. It's a multi-systemic disease, which means that each person has a different reaction to the spirochetes, which is that little wormy thing. And basically it had reached my bladder, and I got to his office on my 3rd or 4th session, and I said, Brendan, I can't even sit still. I was in tears. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm at the point where, like, I just think I might have to go on antibiotics because I'm so scared and I can't sit still. I'm not comfortable. I can't be social. This summer was so hard. It's hard to have friends trying to ask you, and luckily for me, COVID helped a lot with this, but prior to COVID, I'm a social being, and to have your friends really hold a certain standard for you when you just can't match that standard is really hard sometimes. So there's another element of that. There's been a lot of bullying in my life around my health that my friends would not probably want to hear, but I experienced a lot of bullying as a kid around my health. And into my teens and even college years, some of my oldest friends made it very hard for me to own my healing process. So I get to Brendan's acupuncturist office. I followed through. I started seeing him. I get to the 3rd or 4th session, and I was bawling my eyes out, saying, I don't even know if I can lie down on a table. I have to run to the bathroom every 5 seconds. And he said, honey, can you give me 5 to 10 minutes? Can you hold it for 5 to 10 minutes? He lies me down. 45 minutes later, I wake up. I've had many. I do a lot of meditation. I've been doing, I'll save that for another video, but my goal is to start making more of these for all of you. But basically, I had an out-of-body experience. I wasn't totally asleep, but for 45 minutes to an hour, my body just chilled. I didn't have to go pee. Everything went to peace. When you have the acupuncture needles in you, you can feel these pulses from one needle to another, and they are literally rewiring your system. It's the most magical thing I've ever experienced. So I left that day and I felt one step better. I am not healed yet. I can feel it. I'm not there. I'm not where I want to be. I still get swollen glands. I went through a breakup a week ago and my throat was totally swollen. My back hurt. My arthritis flared up. But I said to Brendan when I first was told about the dietary elements of Chinese medicine, I said, I don't know if I can do the no garlic, ginger, and onion thing that all I do is Asian cooking. That's like my approach towards food. And he was like, of course it is. That's why you're here. It's it all comes together. But guess what? Asian food, Chinese food, whatever style Asian food you cook comes from the same place that this medicine comes from. So there are recipes to deal with a sweeter, more mellow, more alkaline diet. And that's ingrained in their culture. And so I've been really taking on a lot of philosophy towards Asian diet, Asian religion. They just know a lot. They know a lot. They've been doing a lot of work towards this for a long time before we ever were. So I told him, I said, I don't think that I can take garlic out of my diet. And he was like, yes, you can. And I was like, well, all I do is cook Asian food. And he said, you know what? My wife and I cook only Asian food, and we have gotten to the point where a pinch of black pepper, so anything heat producing, anything that you think of spicy to the tongue. So green herbs are for the most part pretty cooling. Parsley, basil, Italian herbs, those are great. Cilantro is even fine. But cayenne, paprika is kind of neutral. I use paprika. I probably would benefit from taking it out and like taking it a next step further, but the beauty of what I am trying to work towards with this video is that it's a path. Like I said, I don't feel healed yet. I am in it. I am deep in it right now, and it's really hard. But we are not alone. And I have to constantly tell myself that every day of my life, that I am not alone. None of you are alone. We are in this healing process together. I am here to help you. You are here to help me. I highly encourage, if you have Lyme disease, to take garlic, ginger, onion out of your diet. Sugar, take it out. Alcohol, take it out. I will say I was strong with it at first. The downside to the emotional aspects of healing is that you play mind games with yourself and you get into the mindset of an addict. You don't even realize it. You might not think of yourself as an addict towards alcohol or drugs or whatever it might be, but I know I sure don't. But at the same time, I get into the mind of an addict, and I've found myself there in the last few, probably 4 or 5 weeks, where the loss of a grandmother and a breakup, all of a sudden the world just feels like it's pinning things against you, and you go towards your vices, and it's normal. And that's another thing that you just have to tell yourself. It's never over. You can pick right up the next day. You don't have to do anything, but if you want to feel better, you have the resources in front of you to do that. So, Brendan has healed many a people, I think hundreds of people with Lyme disease. It takes strict commitment, and it is excuse my French, a mind fuck. It is. It's really, really, really hard on your mind. I went through sugar withdrawal. I went through garlic withdrawal. I wanted to rip my hair out. Yesterday, I was at the grocery store and I put a cider donut that was vegan. I never find vegan cider donuts anywhere. And I was like, oh my God, my favorite. I'm a Vermont girl. I like my cider donuts. I love my fall treats. I find a cider donut that's vegan, but it's not gluten-free. It has sugar in it, and I put it in my basket, and I get to the register, and I give it to the cashier. That is a personal victory of mine. Last night, I drank tequila. It is what it is. You pick your vices, you love yourself, you choose to move forward. I will say, proof that garlic, onion, ginger, scallions, a pinch here probably won't do it as much, a pinch of black pepper, but I have to say I'm starting to just even take those things out. I take the scallions out of my miso soup. I take the pepper out of any meal that I make, and my taste buds are starting to acclimate to the natural sweetness of food, and it's really cool. You realize that you're actually burning your taste buds with too much spice, and a lot of this world in general does that, so you don't even realize people are proud of their love for spice. Beautiful thing. I love spice. It's a very prideful thing for a lot of Americans, and Latin Americans actually, but it's funny actually. Spice, I've noticed personally, is a very American. It's like we love to conquer with how much freaking pepper can we put, how much sriracha can we put on something. I didn't confront that as much in Costa Rica. They had really nice like pickled hot sauce and they really loved it. But you end up burning your tongue. If you look at my tongue, that little bit of white, so there's two things that off the top of my head that they look for. The white can often represent a little bit of dampness, so if you've drank alcohol, if you've had any sugar, even in the form of like juice, that can also be very heating. The second thing, which I am proud to say is starting to go away, is often on the edges of your tongue, you can see extra dark red bumps. It's not like a light pink. My tongue used to look burnt on the outsides of it, and I never even knew that that's something to look for. It's because you're introducing so much heat through your diet. You're having, like, I had garlic in every meal. I love garlic. Everyone loves garlic. But interestingly enough, just a little side note, my lab results dictate that I have had Lyme disease for anywhere from a year plus. My symptoms dictate that I have had it for about 12 years. And it dates back to a specific episode that I can recall, about 50 plus ticks in a bedroom that I slept in, that I ended up thinking I vacuumed them all up. My guess is that that's when I contracted Lyme disease, which was all the way back in 10th grade. So I've been dealing with this for a very, very long time. But I didn't know that I was ingesting foods. I thought no sugar, no gluten, no dairy. I'm on a roll. I never would have thought garlic. I've been on this healing path without garlic and onion for about between 4 to 6.5 months. Haven't quite pinpointed. Probably closer to 5.5 to 6 months. I've been off sugar for about 2 to 2.5. I'll have like a Tic Tac here and there, but I have officially taken that out. I'll do maple syrup. Maple syrup is cooling. Honey is neutral. So if you pick the two, maple is better for people with Lyme. I was on a no sugar path with no maple, no honey, nothing. And yes, that's better than anything, honestly. But if you are going to have a little sugar with Lyme disease, that's not such a bad thing with maple. I was missing the missing link, which was garlic. I will never forget ingesting a garlic clove in my senior year of college with my ex-boyfriend, Eamon. And I dared myself to swallow a garlic clove because I was sick. I had a cold. I ended up vomiting for like an hour in the bathroom. And since then, I couldn't eat raw garlic. Never made the connection. Oh, maybe this actually isn't so much an allergy. This is your body saying this is toxic right now because you're dealing with a disease. So, a couple months into my healing process without garlic, I was really starting to feel strong. I was like, man, okay. Then I start realizing every time I have hummus and guacamole, I feel like crap. I realize, oh shit, sorry. Sometimes I curse. I realize, oh man, I feel like crap after that. What, like, oh, yep, there's garlic in that. Okay, the doctor's right. You find yourself doubting, I do at least, what the doctor has to tell you when it's, especially when it's alternative medicine that a lot of the world doesn't give credit to. You want to find any reason for it not to work. And then you start to realize, what else have I got to lose? Everything else sucks. I don't want to take antibiotics. This is the next option, so let's see to the fullest extent if this is going to help me. A couple months in, I was now thinking I was fully off garlic, onions, any alliums. I went and bought a pre-made no chicken broth by like Pacifica or whatever. Imagine, I think, is the brand. And it's just a vegan pre-made broth. I thought, what better thing? I'm going to make a whole bunch of stew for me and my partner. Just going to eat soup for a few days. It's getting nice and cold out. This will be perfect. I didn't put any garlic or onions in it. No ginger. Made a nice big hearty Italian stew. Ate it. Made another hearty Italian stew later that week. Ate that. Swollen glands. Excessive heat in the face. Was sweating. Was having heat flashes for like a week and a half. Finally, was like, what is going on? I kept eating the soup thinking I had a cold. Kept eating the soup to try to fix my health. The soup was what was causing the symptoms. It had garlic in the broth that I had bought. That is the extent of proof that I am able to stand by. All my symptoms started coming back. I was feeling arthritis. I have to say, I did about a 2-month sobriety cleanse from alcohol, give or take a drink here and there. From there, it's been about 2.5 to 3 months of me dabbling. Unfortunately, recently, it's been like each weekend I have my drinks, and I'm having my own conversation about that right now with myself as to, okay, you got this. I've done so much work. It's time to take it to the next step. But as I said before, it takes time. It takes patience. It takes love for yourself. It takes not having shame or guilt. It really just takes holding yourself in it and feeling the pain and believing that getting better is a possibility. and I am living proof that it is. And I'm not better yet, but I feel a hell of a lot better than I did 5 months ago. My arthritis has gone down. I now feel it when I have things I know I shouldn't, which means when I do what I should be doing and what my doctor tells me to do, I feel great. Not only that, but from the words of him, this is a process that you can overcome. You have to be strict about it. And you have to understand that it doesn't have to be permanent. It does not have to dictate your life. And that is a really, 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 really hard lesson to learn. Really hard. I'm still learning it every day, as you can see. So I wish you all the best. A lot of you have contacted me regarding Lyme disease. Know that this is the most information I'm able to give right now-ish. I can talk privately. I don't know that I have it in me to respond if I do get a lot of responses, so don't take it personally. I'm going to continue. If anyone has questions and want to shoot questions my way, if I don't respond to the questions via direct messenger, know that I will be keeping a list of those questions for my next video. And hopefully a more professional space other than my bedroom. This was kind of one of those moments where my soul just told me it was time to share it, so I didn't really prepare for this, but I love you guys and gals and everybody else. I love you. Be well and stay on track and love yourself.